The United States is massive, but have you ever looked closely at the borders? Because some of them make zero sense. From islands split between states to American towns completely surrounded by Canada, and even an island both Canada and the US claim. Yeah, it's bizarre. Let's dive into the weirdest US borders you never learned in school. The town trapped inside Canada. Let's start with something really odd. There's a chunk of Minnesota that's completely cut off from the rest of the US. It's called the Northwest Angle, and to reach it by land, you actually have to drive through Canada. Why does this exist? Well, after the American Revolution, the Treaty of Paris set the US-Canada border from the northwest point of the Lake of the Woods, straight west to the Mississippi River. But here's the twist. The Mississippi doesn't go that far north, and the maps back then were hilariously inaccurate. So the line ended up curving around the lake, trapping a piece of Minnesota behind Canadian territory. Today, the 120 or so residents have to go through 2 border crossings just to get groceries. Oh, and yes, they have a school, a bar, and plenty of ice fishing. The island that's technically divided. Next up is Ellis Island, famously known as the gateway for over 12 million immigrants. But did you know it's actually split between New York and New Jersey? Here's why. Back in 1834, the 2 states agreed that all islands in New York Harbor belonged to New York, even though Ellis Island was technically in New Jersey waters. But then the federal government expanded the island with landfill, and suddenly, decades later, New Jersey said, "Hey, that's our water." The case went to the Supreme Court in 1998, and New Jersey actually won part of the island. So today, Ellis Island is legally part New York, part New Jersey, depending on which section you're standing in. A piece of America dangling below Canada. There's a tiny place in Washington state that looks like it should be Canadian, but it's not. It's called Point Roberts, and it sits just below the 49th parallel, which is the straight line border between Canada and the US from Minnesota to the Pacific. Problem is, this little tip of land hangs just south of the line. So technically it belongs to the US. The only way to drive there from the rest of Washington? Go through Canada and cross back in. And yes, kids there literally have to cross an international border 4 times a day just to get to school. You can't make this up. The Alaskan Panhandle. Now let's head way up north to Alaska and talk about that weird sliver of land hanging down the side, the Panhandle. This strip denies Canada a direct coastline for hundreds of miles. Why? Because in 1825, Russia and Britain, remember they controlled Canada at the time, signed a treaty that said Russia's Alaska would extend 10 marine leagues inland from the coast, but they didn't define which coast. So the line could have started from the outer islands, or the mainland. It wasn't a problem, until gold was discovered there. Suddenly, Canada and the US both wanted that juicy coastline. In 1903, a panel with mostly American and British, not Canadian representatives, made a compromise, mostly in America's favor. The island no one can agree on. Finally, there's Machias Seal Island off the coast of Maine. It looks small and unimportant, but both Canada and the US claim it. The dispute goes all the way back to colonial charters. Britain once said Nova Scotia extended 6 marine leagues out, but after independence, the US claimed all land within 3 marine leagues of its shores. This island falls right in the middle. Canada even built a lighthouse and stations a few coast guards there. The US mostly just ignores it, but they still insist it's American. Meanwhile, both sides fish for lobster nearby, and tourists visit just to see puffins. Because why not? So next time you look at a map of the US, remember? Those straight lines and clean borders? Not always so simple. From kids crossing borders to go to school, to islands shared by 2 states, America's geography is full of weird leftovers from treaties, bad maps, and pure historical chaos. Thanks for watching.